Morning, grade fours. This morning we're going to be talking about two things in math that will make your job of trying to do multiplication a lot easier. So they are called, and they're big words, they're called the commutative property and the distributive property. So they sound like big words, but when you take a look at what they mean, it's actually fairly straightforward. So today we're going to look at both of these. Don't worry too much about the words. You don't have to memorize the words. You're never going to have to learn to spell them, at least not for a long, long time. But I just want to take you through the strategies because they actually make math a lot easier, and it's something you're going to be using in math right up until you finish high school and even into university or college if that's what you end up doing. So they're pretty important. So first of all, I'm going to take a look at the first one, the commutative property. Now, you might recognize, or this might look familiar to you. So you might think, well, where have I heard this word before? Well, you probably haven't. However, if you look at the root word, commute is the root word of commutative property. Well, commute you probably heard of before because if someone, for example, needs to commute to work, that means they're traveling or going somewhere to get to work. They're moving somewhere to get to work. So commute actually means move around. So, excuse me. So we've already done this property. I just haven't told you this is what it's called. But remember when we looked at this multiplication table, I greened out all of these numbers here, and I said, you don't have to know these because they have a counterpart over here, another one that's the same. So this is 3 times 2, right? 3 times 2, and this is 2 times 3. Well, in the commutative property, basically what it means is 3 times 2 equals 6, 2 times 3 equals 6, 5 times 4 is 20, 4 times 5 is 20. It basically means it doesn't matter what order you put the numbers in a multiplication question. You're always going to get the same answer as long as they're the same numbers. So let me give you a more sort of big example. So say we had a question like this. Now, you're not going to need to know stuff like this yet, but just wanted to give it to you as an example. If I had a multiplication equation that actually had 3 numbers, 5 times 2 times 3, what you would normally do in math is you would multiply the 5 times 2 first and take that answer and multiply it by the 3. So 5 times 2 is 10. 10 times 3 is 30. So you get your answer 30. Well, look at how many ways I can rewrite this just based on the commutative property. So I've got 2 times 5 times 3, 3 times 5 times 2, 5 times 3 times 2, 2 times 3 times 5, and 3 times 2 times 5. So there's a lot of different ways just to write that same one. All right, so that's called the commutative property. If you rearrange stuff in a math equation, when it's multiplication, it doesn't matter. You're going to get the same answer. So it doesn't necessarily seem that important when you think about it. But when you think about the fact that you now only need to know, excuse me, half of these, because the other ones are just repeats, that makes it make a lot of sense. So that's the commutative property. Fairly straightforward. We're going to take a look now at the second one. So the root word for distributive property is distribute. So I don't know if you've heard of that word before, but I want to think of things like distribution center. So a distribution center is a big building where they have a lot of stuff that needs to be sent out to stores usually. So for example, Amazon has a huge distribution center because they send out tons of stuff all over the place. There's also, if you work or your parents work at a grocery store, grocery stores have food distribution centers. So there'd be like a giant warehouse somewhere where all of the stuff would be then sent to stores like Metro and No Frills and Food Basics. So those stores get distributed, food distributed to them. So distribute really means to give out. All right. So you might even be playing cards. You're distributing the cards to the people that you're playing with. That means to give out. So this is basically what distributive property means when it comes to math. So I want you to take a hard math multiplication question, one that you might have trouble doing in your head. 13 times 4. All right. So this is and some of you may know this in your head, but most people would look at this and go, yeah, I can't do that in my head. You'd have to think about it for a while, maybe count it on your fingers. 13 plus 13 is 26. 26 plus 13 is 39. And you would sort of probably give up there because it's just too hard to keep all those numbers straight in your head. Well, I'm going to show you a way using the distributive property that basically makes this job easier. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this big number 13 and we're going to distribute the 13. We're going to break it down into the numbers 10 and 3. All right. So 13 is equal to 10 plus 3. So I've broken down my 13 into 10 and 3. Now what I can do is I can multiply my 4 by each of these. And you guys know those ones, right? You know off the top of your head that 10 times 4, oops, apparently I don't know. 10 times 4 is 40, and 3 times 4 is 12. So you know that off the top of your head that those are in fact the answers. Now all you have to do is, and I probably messed this up because I made a typo, but yes, I did. So now you know, it's gonna be 52. Now you know you just have to add these two together. 42 plus 12 is 52. So then you know 13 times 4 is 52. So when you looked at this, it might have been tricky, but as soon as you break it down, you can go 10 times 4. We all talked about this the other day. If you multiply any number by 10, you just add a 0 to the other number. So it's 40. And you probably know that 3 times 4 is 12. So now just adding those two together becomes really easy. Let's take a look at another possible example. So this one is harder. 23 times 4. Most of you probably don't know 23 times 4 off the top of your head, but I can break down 23 into two numbers, 20 and 3. So now you might know that 20 times 4, so I'm going to do 20 times 4 first. That's a bit tricky because it's a big number. It's not in your multiplication table, but I'll give you a hint. If you take off this 0 and you go 4 times 2, well, you know that's 8. Now just add the 0 back into your answer. So 4 times 2 is actually 80. Sorry, 4 times 20. Now all you have to do is the 4 times 3, or 3 times 4, which is 12. So you know, just adding these two numbers together, 80 plus 12 is 92. So 23, in fact, 23 times 4 is 92. So you can amaze your friends by knowing that 23 times 4 is 92. And that's something you could probably almost do in your head using mental math, right? Because 4 times 20 in your head, 80, 4 times 3, 12, you know that, 80 plus 12, 92. So it makes a question like this, a lot easier. So the distributive property is this. This is how it works. This is how you're going to use it. When you're multiplying, a number can be broken up into smaller numbers and it won't change the answer. So you can even break a number up into three different numbers if you want. We've been breaking these big numbers into two different numbers, right? We broke the 23 into 20 and 3. We broke the 13 into 10 and 3. But we can actually break them into more if we want. But as long as you add up the multiplication answers you get at the end, you're going to get the same answer. So it makes it pretty easy that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, I have 8 questions for homework, and we're going to do the first one together. So this is the file you're going to get in Google Classroom. And it says, using the distributive property to answer multiplication questions. With each of the following multiplication equations, find 2 easier equations you can break the larger number into so that finding the answer is easier. Use the two new equations to find the answer. So it's basically the same. So the first question, 14 times 8. So that's one you can't do in your head. So now I put a line here. You're going to have to double click to get rid of that line. So what are you going to break the 14 into? Well, I'm going to break the 14 into 10 times 8 and 4 times 8. I know that 10 times 8 is 80, and I know that 4 times 8 is 32. So now I just have to, in my head, add up 32 and 80. It's a bit tricky, but I know that that is 112, and therefore 14 times 8 is 112. Now that's cool because you would never know, like if someone asked you what's 14 times 8, they're not going to expect you to know off the top of your head, but in this case, you can figure it out pretty quickly. So I've done that one for you. I'm just going to, whoops. And then the other ones are the same. So it's the same sort of deal. You're going to divide the larger number into two numbers. You're going to put one of the two numbers here, the other one here. Then you're going to multiply them, put the answers here, and add up the answers and put that added up answer here. All right, you see how I did that? I did 80 plus 32 is 112. I know it seems complicated. Take a look at these, see if you can do them. There's 8 of them. We're going to take it up tomorrow. And email me if you're confused. Don't worry about it too much. If you're struggling, ask mom or dad to help you out maybe, or talk to one of your friends to see if they can figure it out. But basically, that's what we're looking at today. So hopefully that is fairly clear. It's the distributive property and the commutative property. So you have a good day, and I'm going to be posting your language assignment at 1 p.m. Talk to you later.